I do it for you, man. Showing naked ass out here in Texas, man. All sounds is worldwide now, you feel me? Remember, man, it ain't school ain't make the Knicks, man. You listen to a sᴏʀʀy slowdown. Chop, knock, slop, man. Chop stars, throwback mix.
What's up? I just wanted to talk about this upcoming election and what are people looking for in the next president. Honestly, I'm not too excited about the prospects. I still say anybody is better than Trump. So I just consider myself voting against Donald Trump. But it's hard to feel like I'm voting for anything. And I don't watch the news. I didn't watch any debates. I don't keep up with any of the politicking and campaigning. If you are familiar with me, like, you know that I don't like put too much faith in politicians as it is. I think they're all full of it, and rightfully so, because politicians have to be to a certain degree. But I would love to see a president say, we're going to legalize marijuana on a federal level. Don't just leave it up to the states. That's a weak stance. It's almost like a non-stance. Like, it takes responsibility out of the White House and the executive branch and puts it in the hands of the states, which is mostly middle America, which, let's be honest, is always stuck on stupid. And the South is preoccupied with oppressing their own constituents. Like, don't get it twisted. A lot of blacks and Mexicans, we're not in a position to even cause them any problems like that. So they play on the racism of their white constituency and appeal to that for votes. As far as blacks, being obligated to vote Democrat, that's some bullshit. And I want to show you why it's offensive to even suggest, as a black person, I owe the Democratic Party anything. Okay, let me tell you a story of Fannie Lou Hamer. Okay, this was a black woman from Mississippi who went through hell all for the right to vote. Okay, feel free to go read this article. And she was given the racist voter registration test and all that. And let me just read this part of the article. Lyndon B. Johnson was distressed a few days before the start of the 1964 Democratic National Convention. In a presentation to the party's credentials committee in an Atlantic City hotel ballroom, a black Mississippi woman named Fannie Lou Hamer was giving a disturbing account of various past attempts to exercise her right to vote. She was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Hamer, then 46 years old, had been the youngest of 20 children in her family, leaving school in 6th grade to work on Mississippi plantations. She had been poor her entire life and suffered from polio as a young girl. Just 3 years earlier, she had been sterilized against her will while hospitalized for a minor surgery, something that was not uncommon back then, guys. But her address to the 108 committee members that day recounted, in sickening detail, numerous instances of violent institutional repression that had prohibited Hamer from participating in her country's and the Democratic Party's democratic process. Okay. She first failed the arcane and discriminatory literacy test that was administered to African Americans in 1962. She was on a busload of hopeful black voters that was pulled over for being the wrong color, too yellow. Then the plantation owner kicked her off the land she sharecropped for attempting to register to vote. Then in 1963, she was arrested with several others after attending a voter registration workshop. While in jail, she was brutally beaten with a blackjack by other prisoners at the orders of a state trooper who told them to, according to this magazine. Make the bitch wish she was dead, quote. Now, at the Democratic Convention, Hamer was speaking on behalf of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, a grassroots political project that aimed to replace the state's elected delegation that it was illegally selected with a segregated vote, a white primary. Less than 7% of eligible black adults registered to vote in Mississippi in 1964, with the cooperation of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, NAACP, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and the Congress of Racial Equality. Activists in the South organized tens of thousands of mostly black, poor, and working class people in a precinct-level effort to subvert all the white Democratic stronghold in the state. It's white Democratic stronghold. Keep that in mind. President Johnson, a Democrat, worried that this had the potential to turn off racist white Democrats, is what it comes down to. If you want to read the whole article, I'll post the link in the description box. But let me just say, Hamer's testimony was an uncomfortable dose of reality for liberal America. Even today, her story teaches largely unexamined lessons regarding the background and work of the civil rights movement and its many proponents. Skipping ahead some. Then in 1962, everything changed for her. In response to a voter registration drive led by Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, she decided that it was time for her to register. She failed her registration test, as did virtually all blacks by Jim Crow, Mississippi. This is another article, but still, same thing. Jim Crow, Mississippi of the early 1960s. But when the news of her having tried to register leaked out, she was fired from her job on the plantation and forced to move from the house she and her husband had lived in for 18 years. From this point on, Hamer's life was inseparable from the civil rights movement. In a Mississippi that led the nation in record lynchings, 581 between 1882 and 1968, she became living proof that the system could be defied. On her second trip to the courthouse, she even succeeded in getting on the voter rolls, convincing the local registrar that if he did not sign her up this time, she would keep coming back until he did a year later. Now, I skipped ahead some, but I did mention she was beaten badly while in jail for trying to register to vote. Now, Hamer's response to the beating was to plunge still further into civil rights work. She was a key participant in the Mississippi Summer Project of 1964, in which college students from all over the country aided local voter registration efforts. And that August, she made national news at the Democratic National Convention in Atlantic City. At a televised Credentials Committee hearing held to decide whether the Integrated Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party or the all-white Mississippi delegation of party regulars should be seated, Hamer delivered the speech of her life. She described her beating in such moving terms that President Lyndon B. Johnson, who was watching the proceedings on television, a Democrat, worried that his re-election chances would be hurt by a Southern walkout over the Mississippi question, and tried to divert attention from her by calling an impromptu news conference while she was still speaking. This woman was damn near beaten to death, riding for the Democrats, trying to register herself to vote, which is her right as an American citizen. And the sitting Democratic president didn't want the country to hear about this because it would scare away the racist Southern white Democrats. What does that tell you? That, yes, Democrats may have made some improvements or be responsible for some type of improvement in quality of life for black people, but they're not completely for black people. They're not the black party. They still have interest of racist white Democrats in mind as well. So anybody who thinks that black people have this blind obligation, or should have this blind faith in the Democrats, needs to learn their history. Now, we've made a lot of progress since 1962. I personally, like I said, would love to see a president get up there and say, let's legalize marijuana. It's harmless. Too many people are locked up over this, and it has medicinal value. Like, it just does. So, with so many people dying from abuse of alcohol and cigarettes, they're still legal. Why can't we legalize marijuana? Scientific research has shown us the medicinal benefits for a wide range of ailments. It's been long known that it helps with the side effects of chemotherapy that cancer patients receive. But it also helps with a myriad of other things like chronic pain, depression, anxiety, other mental issues, behavioral issues, even metabolism. THC has been proven to improve your metabolism, believe it or not. We got gay marriage legalized for the most part. We got some states to legalize marijuana. Other than the violence towards Black trans women, I don't know how much more progress we can make for the gay agenda, because I could have sworn I heard Kamala Harris say her mission as vice president would be to make strides for the gays. And I'm all for that, but the gays made plenty of strides under Obama. Like, how many more strides do they need to make, at least before Black people? And I'm one of them saying this. So I don't know where she's going with that. What's that all about? But to me, if nothing else changed, everything else kept going the same. They didn't completely do away with the Affordable Health Care Act, and everything else pretty much stayed the same, and they legalized marijuana, I would be happy with that. I couldn't really expect more. It's too late to go back and do any preventative measures for this pandemic, so there's no need in keep dwelling on that. I mean, it just is what it is. But yeah, I'm just curious to see, what are your expectations? What do you want to see differently? Let's say Trump gets reelected. What do you want him to do in his second term differently? What can he do? What does he have the power to do at this point? But, yeah, that's all I got for now.